Welcome to the Center for Airmanship Excellence ADSOD Participant Selection Program Briefing version 1.1. And some of you who are viewing this briefing may have attended a in-person briefing, and that was version 1.0. This is version 1.1. I'd like to get a couple of terms defined before we move into the briefing itself. As you probably know, if you're viewing this briefing, ADSOD, ADSOD, is the acronym for Airmanship Development Support Organization Demonstrator. And the Participant Selection Program is this program you're about to get briefed on, by which we intend to round up all the participants that are going to be involved with the Center for Airmanship Excellence in the ADSOD. And of course, since it's aviation, we have an acronym for the ADSOD Participant Selection Program, and that's APSP. Another term I'd like to get well defined before we move into the briefing itself is Airmanship 2.0. You may or may not have heard us use this term before. We've been using it for about a month now to define, give us a shorthand, give us a branding, if you will, for all of the airmanship things that we've been talking about, like the safety culture, operating within a safety culture, flying within an ADSOD, so you have that Airmanship Development Support Organization with the ground support team and the in-flight support team and safety management system to keep you safe, and dispatchers. Modern aircraft, using modern aircraft with all the modern safety devices, and of course everyone using an airmanship development plan, developing it originally, maintaining it, and working it. So all of that is 2.0. Now the APSP, the ADSOD Participant Selection Program Design Goals, are to spread the word about Airmanship 2.0. We have to get the word out there to everybody in the current aviation community that we think this is a better way to fly, and we have a way that they can do that affordably and tailored to exactly how they can use it to become a continuously better airman. So we have to spread the word about it. We also have to spread the word about Airmanship 2.0 because we believe that Airmanship 2.0 will, the practice of Airmanship 2.0 will go a very long way to solving the major ills facing personal flying in the U.S. today. Another design goal of the APSP was to reach out to current pilots. Based on our research so far, working with well over a couple hundred pilots in the Chicago area over the last year, we believe that a relatively large number of the current pilots, guys who have certificates right now, will want to fly by practicing Airmanship 2.0 once they understand it and once they see that there's a way they can do it. Another design goal of the APSP is to reach out to potential new pilots, and this is really the more important of the two outreach programs, if you will, because we have to really start growing the number of pilots that are flying for personal transportation and pleasure in the U.S. And if you have viewed or attended any of the briefings about Airmanship 2.0, then you'll know what I'm talking about in detail. And if you haven't viewed them yet, I suggest you do so, and I'm going to tell you how to do that in just a little bit. But we really have to reach out to potential new pilots, bring them into the fold, and we need to tell them right from the start that the way to fly airplanes is by practicing Airmanship 2.0. And another design goal of the APSP is to educate potential ADSOD participants. So we're in the phase now of the program where we're rounding up the participants who are going to work together in the ADSOD to demonstrate to the aviation industry that Airmanship 2.0 can make personal flying much safer, much more fun, much more enjoyable, much easier. It's easier access for folks, and in the long run much more affordable and a much better value proposition. But it's a complicated system to understand at first, so we don't believe anybody is going to decide to participate with us. In fact, we don't want them to decide to participate with us in the ADSOD unless they have fully educated themselves about Airmanship 2.0. So the APSP design goal also is to focus on potential participants in the ADSOD and educate them. Another design goal is to create an ever-expanding pool of qualified ADSOD applicants. We're not just running this program now to see if it works once. If this program works, it has to continue to work. So that's a design goal, because if we're going to add the number of new pilots that we need in the personal flying segment of the general aviation industry over the next few years, then we believe this is the way we're going to have to do it, by using an APSP of one form or another. So that's a design goal, is to set it up and run it so that it's ever expanding. Another design goal is to select the best qualified applicants for ADSOD participation. We don't want just anybody to participate in the ADSOD with us. The modern aircraft that we're going to fly in the ADSOD are very attractive to almost every current pilot, and to, I would think, almost every potential pilot. But we don't want folks joining us in the ADSOD who just want to fly the fancy new airplanes the Airmanship 1.0 way. We want only those people who want to fly those fancy new airplanes at good rates the Airmanship 2.0 way. Another design goal of the APSP is to aggregate the requisite number of participants so that we can launch the program. And that requisite number is about 140 current pilots in the Chicago area. That amounts to only about 1% of the 10,000 plus current pilots in the Chicago area. Also 70 new pilots, people who have not yet started to learn to fly, or maybe started to learn to fly and then dropped out early on in their training. And that's only, those 70 are only about 0.8% of the 9,000 plus potential pilots in the Chicago area. And I personally believe that 9,000 plus is a very low estimate. I think it's more like around 30,000 potential pilots in the Chicago area. And the approximately 40 staff people we're going to need to run this. Now we're already up to a couple dozen volunteers in the Center for Airmanship Excellence who are working on this, and most of them, if not all of them, will become staff members. So we're about a little more than halfway to our goal there for staff members, but we still have quite a few more staff members to fill in the group before we launch. So that's about 250 total participants out of the roughly 8 million people living in the Chicago area. So how are we going to reach those design goals? We're going to use WOM, W-O-M. And of course, WOM stands for word of mouth advertising, word of mouth marketing. Now, one of the reasons that we are using this word of mouth system in the APSP is that word of mouth referrals are what drive business today. If you're even a casual student of marketing, you'll realize, I'm sure, that the landscape in the marketing world has changed drastically in the last decade, and maybe even more so in the last 5 years. And through all of the means that we have available to us today, most successful businesses use one form or another of word-of-mouth referral marketing in their marketing mix. So it's really an important part of any organization's marketing program. Also, word-of-mouth referrals are what drove personal flying in the good old days. I was here during the good old days, which I would define as the 60s, 70s, and the first half of the 80s or so. I was involved in personal flying with my own airplanes as a flight instructor, as charter pilot, all kinds of things. I was actively involved that whole period. And I can remember that the way that the industry advertised for new pilots and the way they advertised to current pilots back then was primarily through advertising in the major aviation magazines like Flying Magazine, Private Pilot. There were 3 or 4 of them, as I recall, maybe 5 at that time. And the manufacturers, the big FBOs, the big flight schools, everybody advertised in those magazines. And those magazines were displayed on every magazine rack in the country, and those magazine racks were in pretty much all the grocery stores, all the drugstores, airports, terminals, all over the place. And the new people that were thinking about learning to fly had a way to access information about flying by picking up a magazine when they were in their normal course of daily activities. And the folks who were currently flying, of course, then were paying attention to that advertising to see what was happening, what was being offered, what they could do in personal flying. So that was the only advertising, with the exception of, I can recall that the aircraft manufacturers co-opt with their branded FBOs for display ads in the yellow pages, if you're old enough to remember the yellow pages. And that was it in terms of advertising. Everything else was word of mouth. Now, and it worked, and the reason it was, I call it the good old days, because here's how it worked. We had 136,000 student starts a year back during that time, whereas now we have less than 50,000 student starts a year. During that time we had 850,000 pilots, whereas now we have less than 600,000 active pilots. During those good old days, those active pilots flew more than 35 million piston hours a year, whereas now we're lucky to get 14-15 million piston hours a year flown. Back in those good old days, the average number of hours flown per year per pilot in the U.S. was up around 50, whereas now it's down around 22. The industry was growing. We had 12,000 FBOs back then. Now we have less than 4,000. All the key indicators in the trends in the industry were going up and to the right. They were going in the right direction. Now they are all going down and to the right. So I can describe for you when we stopped using word of mouth to bring new people in, and it was in the late 80s is when it started, and it has gotten progressively worse since then. And there's a lot of reasons for that, and I talk about those reasons in some of the Airmanship 2.0 briefings that you can take a look at. But it worked then, and we're convinced it'll work now, only it'll work better now because we have more tools. For example, we don't have the magazine racks everywhere, but we have the internet, and I would argue that the internet is exponentially more powerful way to reach people who are currently flying or who want to learn to fly than the old magazine racks were. Another reason we're using word of mouth in our program is we have to do this to turn personal flying around. We have to greatly increase the number of new student starts. We have to get them back up there around the old level. We have to get them back up over 100,000 student starts a year, we believe. We have to get the retention rate of the people who start up from the current 20% up to around 80%. We have to get more people involved. We have to get the people who are currently flying to fly more. We have to get them to want to fly more, because you can't force anybody to fly more. So we have to get them to want to fly more. So that word of mouth is the best way to market this, if you will, to communicate this to everybody. And another reason we need to use it is because it's not expensive relative to a full-blown nationwide marketing campaign, the type that you'd have to use if you didn't have a word-of-mouth marketing program to get enough people in to turn the industry around. If we've run some estimates, and if you ran what we think would be an adequate marketing campaign, using dollars, you'd have to increase the cost of or increase the rental rates on airplanes in the typical flight schools and flying clubs by about $5 to $10 an hour just to cover the marketing costs. So we all want to keep our cost of flying down. As they say, talk is free. We all like talking about our flying, so let's talk about it. It's a more effective way, more cost-effective way to bring the new people in. Also, this word-of-mouth marketing campaign isn't just something we made up. We did a lot of research on it. I've used these types of programs over the years, but I hadn't used this type of program in probably 7 or 8 years. So I did some research to see what's available now, what the best practices are, best techniques, opportunities, so forth. And I found this book, The Referral Engine by John Jantz. And it brings everything together in one place, and John seems to be a real knowledgeable guy in this area. The logic makes sense to us, and what the traditional aspects of the program that he recommends we've all used at one time or another, and we know they work. So we kind of used it as the handbook, if you will, for putting the program together. And the referral engine, the book, it really offers a systematic approach to generating word-of-mouth referrals. So it's systematic. That's one of the keys to doing this. It can't just be, oh, let's all talk about it. We have to have a system for doing it, and I'll show you what that system is here in a few minutes. To generating those word-of-mouth referrals, and it has to be a comprehensive marketing strategy. So it isn't just talking, and there's a lot more to it, as you'll see. Now here are some principles of successful word-of-mouth programs. People trust the recommendation of a friend, a family member, a colleague, or even a stranger with similar tastes over anything thrust at them by a faceless company. We've all grown up, even the oldest of us among us, and I'm on the leading edge of the boomer generation myself, we've all grown up with advertising. And it's just gotten more and more intense over the years, as we all know. Therefore, we've become very inured to advertising pitches. And that's why it takes, louder and louder shouting at us, more and more frequency, more clever ways of reaching us if you use the quote-unquote traditional advertising channels. But if you're talking with someone that you maybe even just met, a colleague or a friend, but especially a colleague, friend, or family member who you trust, and they tell you something, you get over that skepticism barrier right away, and your filters are opened up right away, so you listen to what they have to say versus advertising. So that's why word of mouth is so much more effective than traditional advertising. And even the science shows, there's been a lot of research done on this. Science shows that people can't help recommending products and services to their friends. It's an instinct wired deep in the brain. Now, I can tell you from personal experience that this is very true. My wife, who's also a professional level pilot, when she buys something, an appliance, let's say, she's a kitchen appliance hobbyist, I'll say. She has all kinds of kitchen appliances. When she finds one that she really likes, that does a good job, that's reliable, holds up, she tells everybody in her network, and they all go buy them because they trust her, and because she's passionate about these appliances, and she's hardwired to help other people like we all are. She does this all the time, and it always works. And I keep telling her she should cut a deal with these companies before she starts telling everybody and try to get a percentage, because it's so effective. And I'm sure you can think of this too, and you've experienced other examples in your life, and you can probably remember examples of you doing it too. I do it all the time. If I have something that I think is good, and somebody that I bump into or I know tells me they are looking for a solution, I tell them about it. We all do that. It might be a piece of software, it might be an online service, on and on. We're doing this all the time. So this is nothing unusual. And we can, as an organization, tap into this hardwired desire to help other people, to tell people about it. And I'd add to that hardwired desire to accept this information from people that we know and trust, or even we've just met, versus reading about it in an advertisement. But one of the other principles to make a word-of-mouth program effective is it has to be highly convergent, and in our case, participant selection program. Highly convergent. Now, Janst in the book defines highly convergent as high-tech, high-touch. Now, I was using this term back in the late 70s, and I'll show you here in a little bit, to describe this kind of program. But I think it's an excellent way to think about this kind, our kind, what the APSP is, what kind of word-of-mouth program it is. It's high-tech and high-touch, both. Now here are the operations, the programs wherein I used high-tech, high-touch approach. I was the leader of the teams that implemented these particular programs. You can see the first one is in 1979. Last one was in 1999. There's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them that I've listed here. There are a few others, but I chose these because they pertain to pilots. They're all about pilots, educating pilots about something, helping pilots to change their point of view from A to B because that's better for the group. That's the same kind of thing we're talking about doing here with the Center for Airmanship Excellence and the ADSOD. I've done, what, at least 7 times there in my career, and I used high-tech, high-touch. Now, you know, before 1999, all of those didn't have the internet, the advantage of the internet. The high-tech part was whatever the leading edge technology was at the time. Like back in that 1979 project, the high-tech part of the program was 35 millimeter slides. We didn't even have computers at that point to even have computerized lists. So that was the high-tech. But of course, as the computers developed, the internet came in, that all changed. But even the one in 1986, we didn't have the internet to use. But we were using at that point videos, automated phone systems. We had computerized lists and ways to databases and so forth. But we didn't have the internet. So this works. I know this from personal experience, which is what gives me a very, very high level of confidence that the APSP is going to work. Now, the other thing we should talk about here to understand all this is what Janst calls the participant referral cycle. The participant referral cycle is the way participants refer others to the ADSOD, in this case, who in turn generate even more referrals. So again, this has to be an ongoing program, and if you think about it, this is a geometric progression, because over time those of us who are talking about this are going to talk to more than one person who joins us, who then will talk to more than one person. So it's a geometric progression, which means we can drive this out pretty fast, pretty far once it starts working. But it has to start working, and that means that those of us who are going to spread the word about Airmanship 2.0 have to start talking about it. The ADSOD can ensure a healthy referral cycle, which is what we want, obviously, by moving participants along this path. So the path is know, like, trust, try, buy, repeat, refer. So know, that means they know about it. How are they going to find out about it? Well, primarily through word of mouth, but I'm going to show you some other aspects of the program. It isn't all word of mouth. So they'll know about it. They'll find out about Airmanship 2.0. And then they'll, as part of that know, they'll look into it. They'll find out something about it. And then they'll like it. And then they'll trust that the folks that are telling them all this stuff are telling them the straight scoop. And they'll get to that trust point by coming back to they'll borrow some of that trust at first from the person that refers them, tells them about Airmanship 2.0, the know part. But then as they get educated and they talk to that person and other people who they trust, who are looking at Airmanship 2.0 or are already involved with it, then they'll get to the trust point. Then they try it. In this case, in this process we're talking about here, they'll submit an application to participant in the ADSOD, and then when we accept them, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, then they'll have to commit. So that's the buy point. and then what they're buying is flight time every month, having a personal airmanship development plan, all the Airmanship 2.0 things. They're committing to operate as an Airmanship 2.0 airman. Then they'll be repeating that, doing it over and over, flying, continuously flying, and then they'll refer to other people. But refer gets a lot easier at that point because they'll probably do a lot of that referring by taking those referrals along with them on flights and showing them videos of their flying and all of that. So that's the cycle. Pretty simple cycle. Yeah, there's several steps there, but pretty straightforward. And because we can define that cycle, we can design a program that follows that cycle, and that's what we have here. I think you'll agree after you see it all. So it's all about spreading the word about Airmanship 2.0. So here's a quick overview of how the program works. We all have a personal network right now. We have a network of people that are currently flying, professionally, privately, in the military, in the airlines. We have a network. In our network, we have people who we know have already expressed an interest to us that they want to learn how to fly. Our network every day is potentially expanding because we bump into new people through our just normal course of life. And if you're currently a pilot, and probably if you've been thinking about learning to fly, if you're an enthusiast about flying, you know that when you get into conversations, even with new people that you originally meet, that it doesn't take long before it comes out somehow that you're a pilot or you're thinking about learning to fly. And especially if you identify that person, that new person, if they identify themselves as a fellow enthusiast, then boom, the connection is made and you naturally just start talking about flying. Well, if you're passionate about Airmanship 2.0, that's going to be part of that, all of those conversations. And that's all there is to it. There's no quotas. There's no make out a list. There's no, you got to, talk to this person and get them to talk to that person. You got to get them to buy something. None of that. This is not what this is all about. It's just about talking about it as you go through your normal life. Now, if you want to get more aggressive, like I am, I'm passionate about this, so I send emails to all the people I know who are interested in this or may be interested in this. I'm open to exchanging information with new people all the time. Every day I'm bumping into new people and I'm exposing them to Airmanship 2.0. So you can be more aggressive about it, and we certainly encourage you to do that because we got to get this thing growing, the whole thing growing, so we get back to at least 100,000 student starts a year. But you don't have to. You can be pretty passive in all this and just be tuned in, be sensitive to that contact, that connection with another person who has an interest in flying. And then the next critical part of the program is also extremely easy. You just have to provide those people who have expressed to you an interest in looking into Airmanship 2.0 after you've been talking to them about it. And again, the way to do it is not to hard sell them to go look at Airmanship 2.0. The way to do it is just authentically, sincerely tell them how you feel about it, what the advantages are, what the disadvantages are, how enthused you are about it or not. Tell them what you think about it. And then this next step is just tell them how to go find out about it. And of course, all you have to do is provide them with the airmanshipexcellence.org URL so that they can come to the Center for Airmanship Excellence Information Hub. So as you can see here, I've got a Chotsky, I call it, a balsa wood glider, and I'm going to buy some of these myself because I think these are pretty neat. They're cheap. I'm going to have Airmanship 2.0 put on one wing and airmanshipexcellence.org put on the other. But I've also got the Airmanship Excellence, the Center for Airmanship Excellence business cards with a website address. You could write it on the back of your business card. You can write it on a cocktail napkin. You can put it on a note, a post-it. Doesn't make any difference. And if you say it 5 times to them in the course of the conversation, they'll probably even remember airmanshipexcellence.org or at least Airmanship Excellence Excellence or Airmanship 2.0, and if you ask the Google, it'll get you to the Center for Airmanship Excellence with that kind of information. So all you have to do after you talk to them is tell them how to hook up to the Center for Airmanship Excellence Information Hub, which of course is the website. Then they go to the website if they're interested. Again, no pressure. And if they are interested, we believe they will go through most, if not all, hopefully all, of the Airmanship 2.0 briefings on the Center for Airmanship Excellence website. And if they do that, we're convinced, and it's already proven to be the case, that those folks who agree with what they see and hear in those briefings will be attracted to joining us in the ADSOD. That's the process. In addition to that word of mouth, we have launched, just got behind here in my thinking, our Airmanship Ambassadors program, which is part of our community outreach program. Now, Airmanship Ambassadors are folks who are enthusiastic, passionate about Airmanship 2.0. They can be new pilots, very experienced pilots, even non-pilots. We have some non-pilots in our organization. They're part of the aviation community, but they're non-pilots. And they'll be part of our team, because not all of our team members in the ADSOD are going to be pilots. So our Airmanship Ambassadors are going to be the prime movers in our community outreach program. And we launched the community outreach program last week on June 16th, 2011. Now, the outreach program will brief the airport community at all of the 7 airports that in the Chicago area where we're going to base airplanes, ADSOD airplanes. They'll brief the airport community on each of those 7 airports. And by airport community, we mean the airport manager, the airport board, if there is one, all of the pilot groups that are based at that airport, the Civil Air Patrol, the EAA based at that airport or around that airport, the businesses on the airport. I'm going to brief everybody on the airport about Airmanship 2.0. The Airmanship Ambassadors then will follow that up by attending airport community meetings and events throughout the year, so that they'll become known as the liaison to the Center for Airmanship Excellence and the ADSOD. And they'll be able to continue to generate word-of-mouth referrals through these organizations throughout the year. The Airmanship Ambassadors are also going to brief airport-related community groups like the service groups, Kiwanis, that sort of thing, Rotary Club, senior groups, any opportunities, and there are many, many opportunities in all the communities to go out and talk to people about Airmanship 2.0. They're again generating referrals. The Airmanship Ambassadors will also be the liaisons with the airport-related high school aviation clubs around the airports they're serving at. And if you haven't seen the briefings yet, the Airmanship 2.0 briefings, then you don't know about NASAC yet, so I'll give you a quick overview. NASAC is the National Association of High School Aviation Clubs. The Center for Airmanship Excellence is the lead sponsor in putting together NASAC. NASAC has a website right now, but there's a major website upgrade. That's nasac.org. It's a major upgrade in progress that will go live on July 10th, a little less than a month from now. And I'm going to be speaking at the FAA ACE Academy down at Purdue University to the students that are attending that on July 10th and their parents. I'll be announcing the launch of NASAC. And the website is a major thrust of NASAC initially, and it will assist students and faculty in all the high schools around the airports where we're going to operate. Well, actually, we're going to offer it around the country right off the bat starting July 10th, but we're going to focus on the airports around the I'm sorry, the high schools around the airports where we have ADSOD bases. And the programming in the aviation clubs that will be set up will facilitate word of mouth referrals for the ADSOD. Through that program, and it's much more complicated than that. What NASAC is really all about is to help young people choose aviation careers and make the right choices about those careers. And we're co-sponsors with this are with the Center for Airmanship Excellence are Lewis University, Southern Illinois University Carbondale, Kishwaukee College, Women in Aviation International Chicago chapter, and the FAA. FAA is supporting it. So that's part of what the Airmanship and ambassadors will be doing. They'll be the regular liaison with the aviation clubs. There will be additional outreach going on in addition to the ambassadors. Of course, my blog, Captain Dave's Hangar, has been up, and for almost a year now, I think about a year. No, I'm sorry, it was last August, so not quite a year. It has quite a following already, and it has a pretty good Google ranking. So I'll crank up the frequency of postings, and of course, we all need to start making comments on my postings. That increases traffic there, and that will increase our visibility out there in the general population among current pilots and those who want to become pilots, which again will generate essentially referrals to our information hub at the Center for Airmanship Excellence website. We also have a Facebook page up, but it's not quite ready for prime time yet, but it will be ready by July 10th. And if you know anything about current marketing, that's the way to go. It might just be a fad, but it's the fad right now. So we're going to plug into it from the business point of view, the Center for Airmanship Excellence. We're also going to establish a presence on LinkedIn. That'll be done by July 10th also. For the same reasons. Twitter, and I'm going to crank up the editorial outreach. By that I mean writing articles for websites, comments on other blogs, submitting articles to aviation publications. I think I've had 3 or 4 public articles published in the last year or so already, and I generally can generate interest for articles that I write with most of the general aviation oriented aviation periodicals. So I'll crank up the frequency of that, and of course I'm encouraging other CFAE volunteers who are writers to do the same. We'll be continuing our relationship with the FAA Wings program. Center for Airmanship Excellence has been since last June, a little over a year ago now, co-sponsoring with the FAA and others like Lewis University, Blue Skies Aviation, Skill Aviation, a few others around the Chicago area that I don't come to mind right away, I'm sorry, Wings program seminars and webinars. And I don't know, we've done well over a couple of dozen of these now, maybe up in 30 plus, I think. And through those seminars and webinars, we've made contact with well over a couple hundred current pilots in the Chicago area, and several either student pilots who recently dropped out of flying, want to come back, or people who are looking at learning to fly through the Wings program. So we're continuing that. We currently have a schedule of 5 briefings, Wings program webinars that are beginning on June 30th. That's a Thursday evening at 1900. That first webinar is already booked up solid. And then every Thursday night for 4 additional weeks, 5 weeks in total, there's another Airmanship 2.0 webinar. And of course those are all recorded, and then we put them on the website as available information for those referrals who come to take a look at us. And we'll be continuing this program, at least we see no reason not to at this point, continuing our association with the Wings program well into the future, and we'll in the not too distant future open it up across the country. Right now we've just been distributing announcements for our Wings program events to pilots in the Chicago area. So that's all additional outreach that's just beginning to be worked right now. Now, we believe the word of mouth and the outreach together will round up all of these people out here who want to learn how to fly or who are currently flying, and educate them about Airmanship 2.0 and through that information hub. So the real goal of the part of the program that you've seen so far is to just drive people to that information hub, to the Center for Airmanship Excellence website. And then once they're there, they'll go into the Airmanship 2.0. They can go to look at the other aspects of the Center for Airmanship Excellence. But in our talking with folks, talking about Airmanship 2.0, since that's how we brand it, that's our shorthand, that's what we'll all use as a standard term to talk to other people about it, we believe that they'll automatically, very easily, slip right into that Airmanship 2.0 menu selection, into the Welcome to Airmanship 2.0 landing page, where there's a quick overview of Airmanship 2.0 in this content here, and it's a welcome from me as the Executive Director of the Center for Airmanship Excellence. And then I'll take just a minute here, if you'll bear with me, to show you what is here. We have a briefing on, actually two briefings I'll show you, on who we are, because we have to establish credibility since we're a new organization. So it talks about who we are. It talks about Airmanship 1.0 because there's a briefing on that, because I found in talking about this over the last 2 or 3 months, getting the message refined, if you will, that it's very helpful to talk about, define for everybody what we believe Airmanship 1.0 is. Easier to see what Airmanship 2.0 is if we do that. And of course, briefings on Airmanship 2.0. We have a briefing on the current airmanship model, which is the bedrock, if you will, of Airmanship 2.0. So it isn't all the detail that, of course, is contained in the webinars and seminars about airmanship, redefining airmanship, that we have available on the website, but it's enough so it'll orient folks on how that applies to Airmanship 2.0 and supports the statements that we make earlier about the fact that we're not just making this all up. It comes from someplace. All of it comes from someplace. And then there's a short briefing on the Airmanship Development Plan, because that's core to the whole Airmanship 2.0 principle. You have to have a continuous Airmanship Development Plan. You have to be modifying it continuously, and you have to be working it continuously if you want to call yourself an Airmanship 2.0 airman, and if you want to derive the benefits that Airmanship 2.0 has to offer. Then there's a briefing on technically advanced aircraft, because we believe that if you are practicing Airmanship 2.0, the best way to practice that is in the new technically advanced aircraft. And again, these briefings here get into the detail of that and describe why we believe that. Then we have a briefing on learning to fly the Airmanship 2.0 way, primarily for people who are thinking about learning to fly, but it also speaks to people who are already pilots and shows them how the learning to fly the Airmanship 2.0 way contrasts with the Airmanship 1.0 way, the way most of us who are flying now learned how to fly. And then there's a briefing on the Airmanship 2.0 support, which is primarily a briefing on an ADSOD in concept. What is an Airmanship Development Support Organization? There's a briefing on why you need Airmanship 2.0, what it'll do for you, and what will happen, or what risks you're running, increased risks you're running if you don't practice Airmanship 2.0. And then there are actually two briefings, part 1 and 2, on the ADSOD itself. It goes into all the detail anyone would need to know at this point of what we're doing and how we're doing it and how they can participate in it. And then there's right now a landing page, and there'll be a briefing soon for flying partners, because we know that one of the major barriers to new people joining us in this addiction of ours, if you will, flying small airplanes for our own personal transportation and pleasure, is the flying partner, the person who's going to be doing a lot of flying with the person who wants to learn to fly. And we also know, if we're pilots, that either personally we have the problem, or we know a lot of pilots that have the problem with their partner. They just won't fly with them, or fly with them often, which takes a lot of the fun out of it, takes a lot of the utility out of the airplane. It takes and it has that drag working on you all the time when you're spending money going out there and flying, and come back with that big grin on your face. So we want to bring the people who are going to be flying with us, who are not pilots, into the picture to educate them and make them feel safe and confident when they go flying with us. So that we have a briefing, we'll have a briefing, very soon. We now have a landing page that talks about all those things with the flying partners. And then of course there's a button to apply. And when you're ready to do that, or when the folks who are looking at this are ready to do that, and then at any time that they want more info, they can access ways to get more info by hitting this button. And we think that's important, because we want to start and keep a dialogue going with these folks as early as they want to get a dialogue going, but we don't want to force a dialogue on them. Now here's an example. If they go into the Who We Are tab, for example, they're going to see get a little bit of an overview here with some content, some print content, and then they'll see that a couple of videos. They can view the video with a Windows media player and several other media players with most browsers, but not all browsers, by just clicking on this picture for part 1 or this one for part 2. However, not all browsers, and in fact I'm running Google Chrome on Windows 7, and I can't access the videos through these two browsers, or these two links. But if I go here, the click here link for the flash video, I can view it with my browser, my 2 or 3 browsers that I have. So unfortunately, the way things are set up and with the resources we have to solve this particular technological problem right now, this is the best solution we have for people viewing the videos. But either way, if they're a little patient with us, which I prefer this was frictionless, but it just can't be at this point, they can access the video of these briefings. The briefings, if you haven't seen them yet, are PowerPoint presentations like this with me narrating them. When they finish up with the last briefing, the call to action is to either apply for ADSOD participation, or to become a CFAE volunteer, or to become a ADSOD staff member, or to request more information if they don't have enough information to make up their minds yet. So it's a pretty strong call to action there. Now if you hit the apply button, you get this landing page. And on this landing page you can see you can apply to be an ADSOD participant, you can apply to be a CFAE volunteer, and or you can apply to be a CFAE staff. And as you'll see here in the copy, I say you can fill out all 3 if you want, although at the end of every one of those applications we have an opportunity for them to say that they're also interested in these other areas. And we do have several people who have submitted applications at this point who have indicated they're interested actually in all 3 areas right now. And again, we're not going to start sorting people out and asking for any kind of commitment until we get a pool of applicants, qualified applicants in place, and we'll start going through them. And when they apply, their application goes directly to the ADSOD selection committee. And that's a relatively small group of us who will make all the decisions on selecting the initial applicants. That committee will probably be expanded a little bit later as the organization grows. Might be some subcommittees there, but we've got an ad hoc committee together right now that will look at all of these applications and select the best ones to participate with us in the ADSOD. Now let me show you what I think a successful applicant looks like. Successful applicants will be ready to commit to Airmanship 2.0. They'll be passionate about it. They'll want to do this. This isn't just a casual, oh, I want to try it, or this, man, I'll see what, I'll put my hat in the ring, and if they select me, then I'll decide then. Well, yeah, you can do that. But we're hoping to pick up through our process here only those people that are committed to it. We're certainly only going to select those people who are committed to Airmanship 2.0 in all of its aspects. Now, obviously, the successful applicants will be folks who have the ability to follow through on that commitment. So, if they're flying now, can they transfer their flying dollars to doing it this way? Do they even want to do that? Can they increase their flying dollars? If they're not flying yet, can they afford to do it this way? So they have to have the ability, and also the ability to put the time in, because this is an increased time commitment if you're going to practice Airmanship 2.0 for the amount of flying you do. For most of us, some people are already flying this much, but for most of us, but it's certainly an increased time commitment for almost all of us on the guided self-study training, the cultures, safety culture, social opportunities. So there's going to be more time committed. So you have to have the ability to do that. But of course, we all are going to want to do it anyhow. So it isn't like it's going to be tough to do. But the successful applicants will be people that look like this. Also, I think the most important thing, though, successful applicants will share our thinking, have the same kind of thinking we have, which is, why be a good pilot when you can be a great pilot, and have an airmanship development plan to make you that great pilot. So that's the most important aspect. Folks who want to commit to an airmanship development plan so they can continuously become a better and better pilot. And also, the successful applicants will be committed to achieving the ADSOD goals, getting those numbers of new people back up, showing that we can do this much more safely, showing that it's more fun, showing that it's easier. All of those things we have to reach the goals of the ADSOD. And so it isn't just coming out and buying flying time. That's not the kind of people we're looking for. This is not a business. Most businesses are just happy to get you to come through the door and buy what you're selling. That's not the kind of people we're looking for here. Yes, we all have to do that too to make it work, but we have to, in addition to that, get out there and spread the word. We have to be committed to doing this. All of the things that are involved with Airmanship 2.0. Now, if you have any questions or comments about the APSP, I really would encourage you to get in touch with me. I want to talk to you. Go to the website and go to the contact button, and you can get to me that way. The phone number is there to call me. You can post a comment on Captain Dave's Hangar. I'd like to engage in any kind of conversation you have about this, because I want you to find out everything you need to know so that you can join me in my commitment to Airmanship 2.0. Here are the next steps I would suggest if you want to move forward with this right now. View the Airmanship 2.0 briefings if you have not already done so. You have to understand Airmanship 2.0 completely to be committed to it. And you have to understand it completely to be passionate about it, to have that enthusiasm come through when you're talking to people. So first step is to get yourself fully educated on Airmanship 2.0, and I can't think of an easier way of doing it than going through the briefings. And of course, you can access those briefings at the airmanshipexcellence.org website, and just hit the Airmanship 2.0. Now, your next step after that, if you haven't already done so, register for Airmanship updates, because you've got to stay in a loop on what we're doing, the developments. Things are going to be happening fast. We're going to be building momentum. We're going to be recognizing you for what you're doing. All kinds of things are going to be happening, and you're going to want to stay in the loop. So the best way to do that is to register for Airmanship updates. Free, just go to the airmanshipexcellence.org and click on the Register for Airmanship Updates button. The third thing I suggest you do is apply to participate if you have not already done so. We need to start building the numbers, getting people on the list. Again, there's no commitment required right now, but we have to continue to build the momentum that we've already created so that we can reach our goals here in a reasonable amount of time, and then we can get the airplanes and start flying and all start having a good time. So apply now. Application and applying is very easy. Just go to the Airmanship 2.0 subweb at the Center for Airmanship Excellence website and click on the apply button. And number 4, your last recommended next step is spread the word about Airmanship 2.0. Even if you're not convinced yet that you want to practice Airmanship 2.0, I'd encourage you to spread the word to other people who you think should take a look at this too, and that affords you the advantage of having some folks to discuss it with as you all learn about Airmanship 2.0. Of course, if you're already committed, want to commit to Airmanship 2.0, you're convinced, then start spreading the word. Easy to do. Just start talking about it to the people you bump into. And again, if you aren't convinced yet, start with, hey, I've been hearing about this Airmanship 2.0. I saw this briefing on how they're going to spread the word about Airmanship 2.0 the other day. Have you seen it yet? If not, well, hey, you might want to take a look at that. And I'd really like to compare notes with you on it if you'd take a look at it and we can talk about it. Because it's always better to have people you trust, people you know, to think about, to talk about things before you make an important decision like deciding to participate in the practice of Airmanship 2.0. And then, just tell them how to get to us by any means you want. If you want some ideas, and we're going to make available on the website shortly the vendors for these chotskis, as I call them, and the business cards and so forth. But really, it doesn't have to get that complicated. Just make sure they get the information to get to the information hub, the website, and then naturally, those who think like us will join us. It's no selling in. And again, just to remind you, these are our goals right now. 140 current pilots, 70 new pilots, people who want to learn to fly or maybe started to learn to fly and dropped out, 40 staff. And again, we don't think this is really all that ambitious, 250 total participants. Well, I'd like to thank you for spending the time with me here to go through this briefing. I hope that it answers your questions, gave you a good overview about the APSP. And again, I would urge you to contact us with any questions or concerns you may have.